This week on SailAway, it's been almost 2 years since we traded in our monohull for this fixer-upper catamaran.
And today we're going to show you every project, fix, and upgrade we've done.
And we're going to show you exactly what they all cost.
So stick around.
So meet me on that island, kiss me on that shore. Hey, promise me that we'll sail away, and I'll be yours forevermore.
I'm trying to.
Stand up straight. You are approximately 4 feet and 1.5 inches. So he's closed in to within a foot of you, almost.
Yep.
Right? You're 5'2".
Yep.
Well, folks, seeing a little bit of our morning come together, and the reason we're showing you all that is because we're just going to roll right into our video for this week. We want to show you an update on every single thing that we have done and spent money on this boat. Every single thing from the beginning until now, which is almost 2 years. We just sort of wanted to do a little bit of a ending point, starting point for our time here in St. Martin, because we have so many big projects, particularly the electric motor conversions and all the stuff leading up to that, that'll be part of it. And we thought this would be a good place to sort of stop, take a breath, and just go comb through the whole boat and show you every, I don't care how minor it was, every little thing that we have fixed or upgraded or added. And we're going to show you exactly how much it cost to the best of our recollection. Yeah. It'll give you a pretty darn good idea of what we've done. All right, we're gonna dig into these delicious avocado toasts.
And normal toast.
Normal toast.
Yeah, and normal toast. Whatever's about out of the avocado. More avocado for us. All right, we'll get this thing rolling in just a minute.
Hopefully it won't explode on it.
All right, well, probably the best place to start is under the boat. We can't really show you that right now, but here's a little bit of a look to the outside, and here is some of the stuff that we have done to the bottom of the boat. A lot of this was done in the boatyard the very first year we had the boat, right before we brought it up to St. Thomas and then all the way back up to Charleston. Obviously, we hauled out, power washed it, all the stuff they do at the boatyard, the blocking and everything. We sanded down that entire bottom, which was a poorly done copper coat job or poorly maintained. We were never entirely sure. Removed all the old striping off the bottom, fixed all the gel coat because that striping was kind of a confused mess and pulled some things loose. So we did a little bit of patchwork and repair. We had a fender rub on the port side that we had to fix and fill. We did a ton of work to the sterns where they were really, really beat up, and the port side was actually even leaking some water into the port side engine room. So that all got sanded, filled, faired, and then of course we painted the entire bottom with brand new bottom paint. Before that, we had removed all the old graphics off the boat, which were kind of an odd assortment of stuff. And then while we were in the boatyard, did an acid wash of the hull to get the shadowing off, as well as some of the rust stains from some of the through hulls, particularly around the generator, which we need to do that again. Replaced one through hull and checked and sealed a few others. Everything else down there was in pretty good shape. We did eventually put on all new graphics, brand new Ophelia logo, as well as our hailing port. And while we were in the boatyard, we measured out our chain and put markers in it. And at one point we discovered a busted link that we had to replace. And that was pretty much the bulk of our stuff we did to the bottom as we hauled out, and a little bit before and after.
So we did a new bridle.
There's that new bridle. Doesn't it look lovely?
They're reassembled.
The whole cage, the bail, the thing,
Right.
was falling apart, and
Right.
I had to reassemble and fix that.
So we repaired the furler
Yeah.
and then reassembled it.
Yes.
New furling lines, new bow seats.
The lifelines and stanchions were a mess. Everything was extremely loose. The stanchions were bowed. Everything was rusty. All the covers were falling off of the lifelines. So all of that got stripped off, cleaned, polished, straightened. It was kind of a lot of weird little pieces and parts to make it all look straight and clean and shiny again. A lot of the running rigging for the sails, both the jib and the main, was really routed poorly, so we had to rerun a lot of that and replace some of it, including a brand new main halyard. When the boat arrived, the lazy jacks had been blown out because of the heavy winds that they had sailed in. So one of the first things we did was rebuild the lazy jacks. The lazy bag was completely destroyed. That had to wait for just a little longer, but in Grenada we took that apart and completely rebuilt it as well, adding another couple supports to it.
Still needs to be actually not just remade, just like a whole new one. But that's on the list for things to accomplish at some point.
We did buy and put on a boom bang, and later, especially after it broke our main hatch, decided we didn't like it anymore.
So we did put in new reefing lines and we routed them properly. We also had new trampolines. When the boat came, they technically had one of the new trampolines in, but it was installed incorrectly, and so we had to redo that and put in the other one. We got a new gypsy because it was shot and a pain in the butt, plus a new remote for that so that I could actually do it from the windlass. Also wiring, because it was a shit show. Rewired and got new bow lights. So we got new bow lights and a new steaming light. The inner forestay was replaced on the way down from St. Thomas when they were delivering it to us, because again they went through some weather that they should not have been in. They got it replaced. So that's new. And then when we were on our way back to the States this last year to go to Charleston, one of our crew, JP, refinished all the handrails for us. So that was nice. So we fixed the skylight covers. They had a lot of snaps missing and things, and just kind of cleaned them up. Along with that, we got new shades. So now it's much cooler inside. We've had a couple iterations of these. We got these ones on Amazon. Oh yeah, we did recut them and we sewed them so that they actually fit the boat. Have new spinnaker rigging, and we worked really hard in Charleston to rebed all of the hatches, or most of the hatches. I think we only have one or two left.
Yeah, it's been a kind of ongoing thing with only a couple left.
Including one latch that will not stay on. So with the rebedding, we rebedded. We also put new glass in and seals. We sealed both the top and the sides. And we got a new bilge pump in the sail locker, which is really good because when this boat was delivered to us, it was very lopsided. And one hull was much further in the water, and then they pumped out at least 500 pounds of
And then I still had to pump out a ton.
of water, and luckily it was just a bilge pump issue. We were really worried it was going to be something else.
The water was squirting through the bilge pump hole where the hose came off. It was a mess.
So yeah, we pumped out the water and we cleaned the sail locker. We removed the solar vent because we figured some of the water is coming in through that, and it wasn't needed. We've got a new wind vane at the top of the mast, and we've polished all of the seamless. All the time, constantly. It's one of those things. Okay, tell me about the generator!
The generator, if you followed us, has been an ongoing saga, but you haven't heard much about it lately. It's going to be really hard for this whole video for me not to say knock on wood like 100 times when I mention things that are working really well now. And this is one of them. Generator's working great now, but man, it took a lot for us to get there. It still doesn't look like much down here because this is still a rough looking generator. It had to put up with a lot of rough abuse and salt water, but it runs really good now. It's because of all the changes we made. Through all of this, there was a new DC regulator, a couple of them actually. We used cheap ones first, which worked, but they wouldn't run the water maker because it needs sine wave power, and those were not, so we had to buy the expensive one eventually. Chris and I rebuilt the starter and got it working again. It's been great ever since. It's got a new battery, new cables, new water cap, new water pump, and also added an electric water pump when we were trying to sort out the problems with it, including all new fuel lines. Chris installed new brushes. I installed a brand new Raycor filter and relocated it in a place where we can reach it and service it. Same with the water strainer. It had been underneath the generator. You couldn't get to it at all. It was a ridiculous spot. Now it's really easy to get to, and we can check it for debris, which it does have frequently. All new house breakers, all new AC breaker, cleaned out all the wiring and hose in that entire compartment. There was so much stuff that was extraneous and old. There was a gigantic block of wood under the fuel tank that I don't really know the purpose of. I assume it was something to help with gravity. Wasn't really necessary. Got it out of there. In that port locker is the plumbing for the port side main suite shower that had been leaking, so I replaced all the fittings and hose for that. Same thing in the starboard locker. Later on, wound up replacing all those in the same way. And another part of the whole generator saga is we bought 2 portable generators. That one was cheap off Amazon while we were in St. Augustine. It died. Its starting mechanism disintegrated, and then it wouldn't start later. That one we had to give up on because it was too cheap to pay anybody to try to figure it out, and I couldn't get it running. Then we bought another one while we were in St. Thomas, and we were really hurting because we were having trouble with the generator. And it ran for a while, and it has a problem with its electronic throttle control. But now it also doesn't run, and we have not figured out what we're going to do about that. Moving back here into the sort of aft topsides area where maybe some of the biggest, most visible changes have been made. And we'll start with the biggest one, which is our big old canopy here. We built this while we were in Charleston, made out of the old crappy bimini that used to be on the boat. It was really rough, but it had good usable stainless. So I used that stainless in addition to a bunch of more stainless. These posts used to be an antenna tower that was on the back of the boat. Cut that in half, and some good friends in Charlotte while we were in Charleston helped get these welded for us. Thanks again, Scott Brown, for hooking us up with that. Got all this welded together, including a new base plate on one side, so we had these aft mounts. Lauren sewed up our top, and we laced it and relaced it about a dozen times in the process. This didn't happen at the same time, but this is also, you put it all together, and it's maybe one of the biggest positive changes in the boat. This with the Dodger. Not just on passages, it's a huge deal because we were getting doused with waves over the top constantly, but sitting here at anchor, it's so much better with rain, because before the rain just dumped down this door and in, which is what ruined the door. And now we can kind of hang out here when it's raining, unless it's just absolutely blowing like crazy. Probably one of my favorite things we've done. We have brand new stereo speakers. Over here at the helm, there used to be a rail that somebody had put up here with a tiny little nav unit on it. We removed that and added what is basically a binnacle guard. Got a handy dandy cup over here. This nav unit is new with our Raymarine nav and our nav pod for it. All that, of course, got rewired into our panel downstairs. Over here, we've got the Starlink, one of our most recent additions and maybe one of the best things we've ever done. Our Traveler, that was all brand new bearings and caps here. After it blew out one side, we replaced all of that. I've got new jib sheets on here, even though they're not actually on here. They are in the mail. They're on their way, and it's something we've needed for a long time. Right here, where the dog is standing, there used to be a table. That was one of the first things we did when we moved on the boat, actually, was remove that table. We knew we just did not need all of this. The tables this boat had 4. So now you can see it's so wide open. It's a great flow when you're walking out the door. Lauren does her yoga here. When we're doing projects, this is obviously the place where we lay things out, make a mess. And it opens up this bench. Out on the sides here, this EVA decking, we did a whole video about that. We put it on there and also on these steps down to the engine rooms. This was a bit of a test because this is the really cheap Chinese stuff off Amazon. And the results of the test are that it failed miserably. But we know now. And when it was first laid down, it looked really good. We have plans for a new product that is the same stuff they're using on the HH sailboats, as well as a lot of new boats. And it's a PE EVA. One of the first things we did when we moved aboard was rerun all the rigging on our davits. It was a hot mess. And so we had to figure out a system that was enough purchase that we could actually get the dinghy up and down by hand, put all new line. We added a couple new blocks, and it's been that way ever since, and it's worked great. Installed a new stern shower, which we use constantly. We've already refinished the wood on the bench here one time, as well as the propane locker door. Those are due for a new coat. When we were in St. Thomas and preparing to leave for the US, Chris and JP took this winch apart and rebuilt it. It needed a whole new pin that they had fabricated, and then they also took this one apart and gave it the works as well. Those have both been working very well ever since. Both of the stern pulpits out here have been reinforced underneath and remounted, as well as the handrails on both sterns. I put backing plates on all of those and rebedded them and sealed them. This one is a big one, and if you watched last week's video, you got to see this one all come together. This is our brand new cockpit doors, completely sanded down, rebuilt, repaired. Yeah, we gotta still put the little locks on here, but we don't really shut them hardly ever, so it hasn't really been a problem. Yeah, just do that. But it's got all new hardware, all new glass. It was a really, really big job, but man, it was a huge one because they looked absolutely horrible. They were tough to live with day in and day out. We also found this little helm pedestal thingy, but it was really falling apart. So I pulled the whole thing apart and flipped it over and reinforced it with aluminum angle. Okay, the big one. The engines, starboard and port. These have been quite a saga, and if you've followed us for a while, you know that. You know it's kind of key to everything that's going on with us. It's sort of changed our path and our plans. Now it has steered us toward really being all in about going electric. If you go to our website, you can check out a whole new page dedicated to our plan for swapping these motors both out for electric motors and everything that's going to go into it, what it'll cost, what all the parts are. But what led up to that was this port side motor crapped out on us when we were up in Charleston. By crapped out, I mean it froze up and would never, ever, ever turn over again. A lot of things happened while we were trying to sort that out. We pulled all the injectors but one. They were in really, really bad shape, and that injector is so seized that even when we called a specialist to come in and try to take that thing out, he had his own special slide hammer he used, it would not budge, and we have never since been able to get that injector out. Something inside there has jellified. That's one thing that we've found out, but every method we tried to get the motor to move, probably even beyond what would, potentially damage it, just because we're like, man, if we can get it to move, whatever, we'll see what we can do. Wouldn't budge. So this became an issue. We couldn't stay in states long, and we had to get moving. But then we started having trouble with the starboard engine, and a lot of parts got pirated. There was a lot of sweat and time. Eventually, the parts that wound up going into both motors and sort of wound up being consolidated in the starboard side was a brand new alternator, a rebuilt starter, a new battery. We had to fabricate, and by we I mean Chris and JP fabricated a spacer to go from the manifold to the exhaust because there was a massive leak there when we got to Charleston. So that did fix that leak and got us moving and got us off the dock in Charleston. However, there was another problem. as we were going to St. Augustine, and weeks later we finally figured out it was the manifold slash heat exchanger unit. It's all one big unit that had a leak somewhere inside, and we were losing all of our coolant out the exhaust. It wasn't any of the typical fixes anybody thought it would be, except one guy, Rob from Michigan, our friend, who told us to try it out. So we had to pirate that big giant piece from the port side to the starboard side, and that's probably a couple $1,000 piece there. But it worked, so that's what got our starboard motor working, and it's been running ever since. But in the meantime, a lot of extra wiring, a lot of hoses have come out. I've replaced both bilge pumps on both sides, and the tubing and hose that goes along with that. Our water heater, which was in the port side, died. That got yanked out and thrown away. And we've also gone through a couple different water pumps, and we're still sorting out what the best kind of pump for a boat of this size is. But currently, the one we have is working pretty good. So if you want to hear more about all the things we've done to those motors and all the effort we've put in, which has been substantial, go check out some of our previous videos over the last year or so. And all of this has led us to this path of wanting to do the electric motors on both sides. And even from a financial standpoint, we think it's going to be a much better situation than trying to replace these motors, for sure. And even if we tried to rebuild that port side one, extra parts it needs and the extra care would wind up being a pretty big price tag. And we think we have a better solution. But that is for quite a few future videos. All right, guys, well, that covers the entire outside and the engines. We still have a lot to go. We got everything on the inside. We're going to cover that next time and give you the big grand total. So, we'll see you for the next video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you then. Cheers!